Hey aficionados, Winston Goodfellow here with the restorer of this car, 1972 Espada or 71?
71.
Lamborghini Espada. And to show you how chill this world-class restorer is, I'm sitting here with my hand on it, leaning like this because it's been a long but wonderful day at the Quail. Actually, interesting story on this car. And we'll dive into the restoration a bit. Real briefly, this car placed second in class at Pebble Beach last year. Pebble Beach being the Super Bowl of car shows. And if memory serves me correctly, it was almost like a reunion here at the show for the Pebble Beach cars.
Yeah, they asked us to bring it back this year because they wanted to display the 3 winning cars from last year. And the Lamborghini Club is going to display them at their club event Saturday night.
I'm willing to bet, now I don't know this for a fact, but for sure for one of the cars, because the third place car was a Diablo SE, which was in beautiful condition with low miles, so it was pretty much untouched. Matt, this was not an ordinary restoration with the way this car started.
No, the owner of this car commissioned a high-end restoration, like the 100-point kind of restoration. So it was pretty extensive, and the car had been wrecked after he didn't realize it when he purchased it. So it had a lot of issues.
How often do you get that, where you start finding issues after you've taken it apart?
All the time, every car. Yeah, every car has some sort of hidden issues you don't know about. This one was particularly bad, but he had us keep going on it. We did have to reconstruct the whole front end, the frame, and all the engine mounts and everything had to be reconstructed because they were damaged so badly.
And so you're basically, okay, so we have our A-pillar here, so you're talking the hood?
No, the hood is original.
Okay.
We did have to do some work on it, obviously, but the frame rails that run forward were pretty damaged, so we had to reconstruct a lot of that.
And the engine and everything else was okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so it's interesting because when you start dealing with even 95 point to 100 point, so how would you classify a 95 point restoration versus a 100 point restoration? And they both sound like they're perfect, they aren't.
Right. Well, I mean, to get a car, those extra few points to get to 100, I mean, there's a lot of parts in the cars that have to be restored that might not be restored, if the client isn't all the way in. Like electrical, like the switches and stuff in the interior, the gauges, the gauge bezels, they restore the steering wheel, everything. There's all these little parts that can take almost as much time as doing all the body and paint work to restore these little components and make them look brand new and fresh, like they would have been. Because these cars are pretty old and all that stuff gets a little worn out. You might still be able to use it in a restoration, but if you want to get that stuff all crisp, those 5 extra points can be a lot of time.
So what Matt's basically talking about, me being a judge at a number of shows, including here, is what I call the uniformity of presentation. When you want to go to the top level, everything has to look to the condition of everything else. So for instance, you're not going to go buy a $2,000 suit and get a $100 pair of shoes to go with it, because the first thing everyone's going to notice is your shoes.
Right. And there's a lot of things too, even just the trim on the car, the chrome. Is the chrome perfect? Well, it's not too bad, but if it's not perfect, then it's really not going to be a 100-point car.
Exactly. So again, going back to the uniformity of presentation.
Right.
And would you agree that the general rule in the business is for you to go from 95 to 100 points, you're basically going to double the cost, or am I exaggerating there?
To really push it that extra 5 points to go to a perfect car could be half the work, of doing everything else. So yeah, it could double the value or the cost of a restoration for sure.
And so it's just that whole need to be that fastidious.
Right. And that's what makes this car stand out, because you don't see a lot of Lamborghini Espadas that are taken to this level, but this car stands out because everything is so well done.
So this is basically, realistically, probably the world's best Espada, if not.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the only Espada to ever win at Pebble Beach. Maybe even.
Let's see, so because we first did Lamborghini in '94, and I'm trying to remember if we had an Espada there. It did not, if we did, it did not place.
Right. But
also
so this might be the only one.
Yeah, the restoration game was so different back then.
Right. Even in the 25 years I've been doing this, it's changed a lot. The cars we were restoring 25 years ago can't compete now. And the game's upped so much.
And by upping, is it just the attention to detail, that fastidiousness, or is there something else?
I think there's new techniques in new standards in doing metal work and paint finish and stuff that weren't there 25 years ago.
Can you give a for instance on either of those?
Well, I mean, just the way we're gapping cars now, the way the flatness of the paint that we're doing now.
So excuse me for interrupting. So when you're saying gapping, so when we're talking gapping, it's where you have the line between the door and the body is completely uniform.
Yeah.
And so that was typically metal finish back in the day. Are you doing something different?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have our techniques and stuff. That's a whole nother story.
Words,
but
proprietary things that Mr. Smart Guy here doesn't want to reveal to the world.
Well, there's a lot of information that goes into, you know, the craftsmanship that goes into the metal finishing of this stuff now. And you know, these cars are getting older now too, so they require a lot more work than they did back then, especially these aluminum parts that are wrapped around steel. None of that stuff is surviving now. Whereas back then, some of it might have survived. You might be able to work with it.
Yep. Good point. Then you not only obviously do the cosmetics, you also do the mechanicals. You do
We're a full
everything.
service, full service interior, the whole thing.
Yeah, and personal experience, this is a lovely driving car. It's just, how do you...
Well, we pride ourselves in making sure that our cars perform as well as they look when we're done, because that is a lot of complaints we hear from clients in the past that, oh, I had my car restored somewhere and it's never ran right, and then it'll come to us. We could go through the carbs on it, or maybe go through the distributors and maybe get them tuned up and running right. And because if you get this car all the way done, then you want to take it on the tour and it runs and backfires, you're just very disappointed.
But I'm going to go even beyond that. This goes back 20 plus years ago, where I was doing a magazine article on a particular ISO, which is another Italian exotics, sort of along the lines of this. Long story short, I had judged the car a few weeks earlier at Pebble Beach, and it won its class. It was one of the cars in one of my classes, and it won the class. So I was doing a magazine article on the car, and I did the shoot, and then I wanted to drive it for the road impressions. And I went maybe a mile down the road. The restorer is following me in the chase car. I pulled on over. I said to the restorer, who I know, I'm going to get you extra work. He says, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to go talk to the client because this car is borderline dangerous to drive. And I was not exaggerating. We'll get your take on that in just a moment. And I was not exaggerating, because you go to turn the steering wheel and it does this, you go to hit the brake pedal, maybe it grabs too fast, maybe it doesn't grab at all. I mean, the car was legitimately borderline dangerous to drive. So I mentioned this to the restorer. I'm going to get you more work because I'm going to talk to the owner of the car to get this car dialed in. And the restorer said to me, what do you mean? You are the opposite of that.
Yeah, because that is, when we started our business, that was one of the things that, they got to run and drive right. Just got to.
But so many shops don't do that. And then the tragedy is you get new people coming into the game, and because the car is older, they just assume that's how it drives.
Unfortunately, yes. Well, I just assumed that they steered bad. But one of the things that's difficult for a restoration shop when you're doing everything, you have to have people that specialize in all these departments now, because I can't specialize myself in all those departments. So you have to have mechanics that know how to tune the carburetors, know how to rebuild the carburetors, because I'm a painter. As a painter, I don't know how to do those things. So you have to encompass that in a restoration shop. You have to have that skill set. It's not easy. You have to have an upholsterer that can do this kind of work, and it's not easy. So now what we're doing now is we're bringing kids in to like the upholstery shop to apprentice.
When you're saying kids, how old?
Right out of high school. We sent a kid to an upholstery school so he could get the basics. He spent 6 months there. Now he's back. He's training underneath our upholsterer, learning how to do everything the right way, how to, the little tricks of the trade, because we got to bring up that younger generation, because Earl, our main upholsterer, is, 55 years old.
Yes.
He's not going to be doing this forever. So if we don't have somebody coming up, then that skill set disappears.
Yep. So Matt, we've been sitting here talking Italian cars, but you do more than just Italian cars, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have British cars in the shop. We do have American cars in the shop as well. We're in Wisconsin. Guys have their muscle cars, have the same drivability issues. They need somebody to help them. So we offer that service as well, too.
And you aren't just total restorations. You do service and partial restorations.
Absolutely, yeah.
And all that type of stuff. So if you're looking to get your exotic, your muscle car, your classic, your British car done right, this is a great place to check out. Streetwork Exotics in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct.
You are. Yep.
Bud, thanks for the time.
Thanks, Winston.
And we'll see you on the road.